Hey, Wemberg World Entertainment, and has Batman had his day? Has Batman been overused? Is the character of Batman simply boring? Well, according to James Gunn, yes, and yes. Yep, he's out there doing the rounds again and saying things that just make people go, why is this guy in charge? And he is now talking about Batman, and it is getting to the point that people are very concerned now about what Batman in the DCU will look like, because he's claiming now he has a plan to fix Batman in the DCU. Yeah, we're gonna look at this because everything you hear that he says, there's some that make you kind of go, okay, that sounds promising, but then everything else is just like, he doesn't get it. And that is the problem. He really doesn't get it. But let's dive into we're going to look at most of the article here at that Park Place. So if you want to see the full article, head over there and check this out, because it is a long article. But it says, James Gunn is once again talking about Batman, and once again, it's raising eyebrows. In a recent interview with Rolling Stone, Gunn openly suggested that Batman has effectively run out of storytelling value, calling the character boring due to decades of exposure across comics, television, and film. While Gunn insists he has a plan for the Dark Knight within the DC universe, his comments are already fueling concerns among fans who have reservations about the brooding and serious Batman in the hands of a director with Gunn's portfolio of zany comedic films. This time, however, Gunn's remarks go further than vague reassurances. He explicitly frames Batman as a creative problem that needs justification simply to exist. A striking position given that Batman remains one of the most consistently successful and popular characters in entertainment history. When asked by Rolling Stone what needs to be figured out to make Batman work in the DCU, Gunn responded, get ready for hearing this. This really just shows you how out of touch he is with a character like Batman. He says, Batman has to have a reason for existing, right? So, Batman can't just be, oh, we're making a Batman movie because Batman's the biggest character in all of Warner Brothers, which he is. But because there's a need for him in the DCU, and a need that he's not exactly the same as Matt's Batman, but yet he's not a campy Batman. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in a funny, campy Batman, really. So we're dealing with that. I think I have a way in. By the way, I think I really know what it is. I just am dealing with the writer to make sure that we can make it a reality. So the reassuring part about what he says there is he doesn't want it to be campy and funny. He doesn't want a campy and funny Batman. Yet at the same time, he's saying he doesn't want the serious, more brooding version of Batman. So clearly, you need something in between, which, quite frankly, for me, that would kind of lean more into like a Michael Keaton Batman. But you're going to start hearing other stuff now where he's out of touch. By the way, hearing that, oh, he can't just exist because we need him. It's like, shut up, James. So the framing is notable. Gunn isn't talking about expanding Batman's mythology or building on existing strengths. He's talking about justifying Batman's presence at all. That framing becomes even more blunt when the discussion turns to Wonder Woman, which Gunn contrasts directly with Batman. So he said this, Wonder Woman I think is actually easier for me because there haven't been so many infinite portrayals of Wonder Woman. Definitely not in movies, but really anywhere. And there have been of Batman. Every single Batman story has been told. It seems like half the comics that have come out of DC over the past 30 years have Batman in them. He's the most famous superhero in the world and the most popular superhero in the world. And people love him because he's interesting. But also having so much of him out there can also make him boring. So, how do you create that property that's fun to watch. Now, we'll continue on with what he's saying there, but that's really the part where you realise he's so out of touch. He's saying in the past 30 years, every story that came out in a comic has been told. Okay, James, here's the issue you have. Batman is over 80 years old. So no, every story has not been told. You haven't even touched upon some of the greatest stories from Batman's catalogue. So you're talking out your butthole right there, buddy. So it says here, that last line is doing a lot of work and not in a reassuring way. Gunn isn't merely acknowledging franchise fatigue, he is declaring outright that every single Batman story has been told and that the character's popularity has become a liability rather than a strength. For many fans, that statement feels disconnected from reality, especially coming on the heels of The Batman, which demonstrated that audiences are still very much willing to show up for grounded, character-driven takes on Bruce Wayne. More importantly, Gunn's comments reinforce a pattern that has followed him throughout his DC tenure, framing legacy characters as problems that need to be re-engineered rather than icons to be respected. So it even says here, while Gunn insists he is not interested in a campy Batman, he also offers no concrete details about what his alternative actually looks like. And then it goes on, so that's where you can continue on yourself with checking out what he says. But yeah, he really is showing us that he does not understand and cannot get to grasp Batman, and that is an issue. And he has said flat out, I can't figure out Batman, I cannot crack it. Then don't. Give it to someone who does and who can. That is what you do. That is what you're supposed to do. You were meant to be the guy in charge of DC to bring other people in who can tell these stories. And the problem is, he's not doing that. He's taking the main characters and he wants to be the one to control them and create them. That's why he wrote and directed Superman. That's why he is now writing Batman, and very well could end up trying to direct it, because we know Andy Muschietti is on board to direct it, but is he still going to be there by the time they actually come up with a script? Because Gunn, even in that one, again says, I'm working with the writer to try and crack this story. He still won't tell us who this writer is. Why is he not telling us who this writer is? Mainly because it's probably him and only him. There's probably no one else, because it makes no sense that you would not say who this mysterious writer is. Unless, of course, it could be the worst possible scenario and he actually has Tom King writing the script. And keep that in mind as well. Tom King is working with him hand in hand on all of this stuff. All of it. Which is also why it's all horrible and falling apart already. Imagine Tom King throwing his 10 cents in for bloody Batman. Good God, help us all. But yeah, to sit there and say Batman is boring and every story has been told with him, when you've barely scratched the surface of the true Batman story. You have not actually put up on the big screen or even the small screen in live action form a proper version of Batman. And that is the thing. And to have a director, a creator, and what is now the head of the company telling us, oh no, every story is being told, the character's boring and we need to fix him. Yeah, it's not a great sign, is it? Looks like Batman in the DCU could be a disaster, especially if it's James Gunn's Batman. But what do you guys think? Do you think he's out of touch? Do you think he's hit the nail on the head? Do you think he's right? Do you think he's wrong? Do let me know. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.